The minimum return on investment is 50%. You got to get $2 of gross margin for every dollar of labor, regardless of what that labor does. That's your true economic. That is the value that you have to add to the transaction inside your company.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Do not skip the intro on this episode of Cabinet Maker Profit System, because I got to get your head warmed up for some heavy thinking. It's actually good thinking, because today's guest is Greg Crabtree. Now, Greg was an author in a book called Scaling Up, which is one of the major strategic planning tools used by businesses. Now, often you hear us talking about the book Traction by Vern Harnish. That's a good business strategic planning tool when you're up to about 10 million. But for those of you out there, and I'm speaking very specifically to a lot of AWI members right now who are doing 20 million a year, 25 million a year, 60, 80, 100 million a year, you're going to recognize the number we're talking about today. For those of you who are doing less than that, thinking, who does $80 million a year in cabinetry? They're out there. And you're also thinking to yourself, I'm only doing 1.5 million. That's okay. That's why I said don't skip the intro. Today, we're going to be talking about something called your labor efficiency rate. And now you're super excited and you're like, I woke up this morning thinking, I really want to learn about my labor efficiency rate. But listen, I want you to think about your labor, the people that we pay to build cabinets, install kitchens, run the crews, salespeople, foremen, not just as a cost, but as a profit lever. Now, you're going to hear Greg talking about this. He says, you should, for every dollar I spend on labor, how many dollars of gross profit did that labor produce? That's what we're going to dig into today. Now, the good number depends a lot on how you run your business model, your structure, your ideal client. But Greg's going to talk about a number of 2 to 1. So hold on. This is a very juicy episode. I'm extremely proud and happy that Greg spent some time explaining this to us today. So whatever you're doing today, make sure you've got the ability to take some notes. You may want to listen to this episode twice. It's going to be juicy. Enough from me. Let's get to the episode with Greg.
Mr. Greg Crabtree, how are you?
Very good. Very good. Appreciate you having me back.
Yeah, well, you look well rested for a guy that just flew in.
Yeah, that's what a week of golfing in Ireland would do for you.
Was that St. Andrews? No, that's Scotland, isn't it?
That was Southwest Ireland. So playing the historic courses over there, Lahinch and Ballybunion, Old Head was
wow.
Everybody's favorite was Old Head, but if there are any golfers listening, you got to put Southwest Ireland on your bucket list. And I will tell you, the locals in Killarney, where we stayed most of the nights, hospitality was off the charts. They treat you like you're the long lost friend. It's just a pleasant place to go. And so,
it's nice to hear, because I think that kind of golfing is on a lot of people's bucket list, and we're running these companies so that we get the benefit one day of being able to take these trips, hopefully to go over there to research a CNC or maybe a new dust collection system.
Well, I was over there with 5 other entrepreneurs that were all golfers, and so there was plenty of business discussion going on, with riding the bus between the courses. And so you'd be amazed at you are still actively thinking about business, but getting everybody away from the daily grind and talking about your experiences and hearing from other people's experiences. I couldn't have picked a better group of guys to hang out with, for a week and play golf and talk business.
Well, let's see if we can solve some of this having the money to get away problem, because you're a finance guy. You're here to help people all over the world with that. So let me put it in your hands for a sec. I'm going to ask kind of an abrupt question here, Greg.
Yeah.
Mr. Crabtree, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing cabinet makers and millworkers all over the world?
I basically get to hear by being a renegade accountant and doing a mea culpa for the profession of accounting, people who have inflicted harm and pain and suffering and lack of clarity of data, for the people who run their businesses. And so I always kind of knew it was there, but really in the last third of my career, I've focused on, serving the needs solely of the entrepreneurial community and
Mm.
helping them create numbers the way it was should have been created back in the 1400s when Pacioli invented accounting. And
Oh wow,
so
that's the history of accounting right there.
that's right. Yeah, it
Yeah.
hasn't evolved much since 1400s, except in the last 10 years since I wrote Simple Numbers. So,
Yeah. Well, that's we should let everybody know that. That's how I found you. You're the author of a book called Simple Numbers, and you were featured in another book that's also really, really well known.
yeah, I wrote one of the chapters in the cash section of Scaling Up.
Yeah.
And then I followed that up at a very innovative title called Simple Numbers 2.0. And so,
Don't
but
confuse it.
yeah,
Use what
but
works.
but mostly the original book, Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits, was really built around the entrepreneurial mindset of the frustration that I've had with just the bad advice that my
Mm,
profession has given business owners that truly thought that we're data people, we do accounting, we ought to have some idea of what works and what doesn't, and we don't for the most part.
mm.
We're good at, lining things up in columns and putting the decimal places in the right places and putting the double underlines in the right places. But the lack of business understanding is staggering.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm so glad you said that because I always feel like I'm poking at accountants when I remind people accountants are not necessarily great business people.
yeah.
They're not. They're good at counting.
Yeah. And the most common advice, comes out is, well, you need to cut cost. And it's like, well, costs are necessary, in the
Yeah.
business model.
Yeah.
And so really, from studying, I learned from my clients more so than I learned from school. Looking at my successful clients who had never darkened the door of an accounting class in their life, what did they look at? What is going on in their brain to make them so darn successful? And there was, probably 20 years of wandering through the wilderness, putting these little pieces together,
Right.
and then, I don't know. I mean, serendipity, the great, shadow, great invisible hand of the universe. I mean, the pieces came together, and really we came out with this handful of rules that we look at in data. And as we studied, and one thing that we do that
Mm.
is accountants don't do is we study data when somebody's not paying us. We study data, and it's like, well, put these three companies together. What's the going on here?
Yeah.
And so as we built and built a bigger data set of live companies that we touched the data so that we knew it was comparable contextually, with each other,
Mm.
a handful of rules that, really
And,
evolved in
and
that.
you share some of the rules here.
Yeah, I mean, so the first one that we started off with is, and this has evolved more in later years, is not focusing on profit to revenue, focus on profit to gross margin. And so your community, this is super, super important.
Yeah.
Take revenue minus cost of materials, cost of subcontractors that you hire to do some parts of things, but get to that gross margin is the true economic top line of your business. And so that's what profit should be measured to.
By
And
gross
if you,
profit margin.
well, and I'll give credit to Vern Harnish for this. When I was writing the chapter for Vern's book, Scaling Up, we had this significant discussion, and this was his idea, and that he said gross profit is a very, bad term. It's confusing. People think, we use the word profit, we think, bottom line. And so after I wrote that chapter, that is the 2014 is the turning point of when I solely use gross margin. A margin, when you use margin with a modifier word in front of it, it is a subset of an economic activity.
Ooh.
And so think about it like this. So I'm doing a project, with a food company.
Yeah.
And so they had gross margin from their food products. So product gross margin. Well, then out of that gross margin, you have channel cost, the channel fees and going through, whatever distribution network, that you put it out there. And so they have fees that for this service that they're doing for you to get your product on somebody else's shelf. And then you have gross margin after channel cost. But then you have your next cost is, well, I've got trade spend. And so this is really kind of in the food business, you have active advertising that has a 30-day or less life. And so that ad spend is very important. That is part of your ultimate gross margin. And so then, you look at, gross margin after channel cost minus trade spend is your final gross margin after marketing spend. All right. And a client named it for us. We couldn't come up with a name, but one of our creative clients we call GMAM, gross margin after marketing.
Right.
And once again, it creates a significant metric, in the measurement of this question that that is lurking in the back of every entrepreneur's mind: how much should I spend on marketing? Well, every dollar that's affected. There's not
as much as you're supposed to, but not more and not less.
But where is the edge of the universe? And where is the next dollar that's spent in marketing that doesn't produce benefit? It's just a dead cost.
Right.
And so one of our effective marketing measurements is we map gross margin on a rolling 12 basis. We map marketing spend on a rolling 12 basis. And we map gross margin minus marketing spend.
What is the power of that rolling 12? Because we're all used to saying it annual or, calendar year or fiscal year, but this rolling 12 is something I'm familiar with, but can you tell us your perspective on that?
Well, I could care less about what your year to date numbers. It's not an accurate accounting period. And so, and this comes from, these are techniques that have long since been in retail and those type of establishments, but it's not caught on in terms of average, businesses, but we use it exclusively. Every month ends a 12-month accounting period. I don't care about the calendar year and I don't care about your fiscal year. I care about consistent rolling 12 performance. And then the nearer term measure is then rolling 3. And then you look at monthly. Months are highly inaccurate periods of time. Rolling 12s, instead of, I hammered this home in the first book, rolling 12 is the highest form of truth in financial data you can get. Because you got all 12 months, all 4 seasons, every dog ate your homework excuse. And I've sat in meetings and showed the teams, data, rolling 12. And, oh yeah, that happens this time of year. There is no this time of year in rolling 12 data. I mean, this is all 12 months. This is not.
It takes the season. What you're saying is it takes the seasonality out of it.
Seasonality. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So that's interesting. And is that something that typically I could direct my accountant to help me with, or is this at such a level that only a CFO would understand it?
Most, I would say less than 20% of CFOs actually produce rolling 12 data. This is a significant weakness in accounting systems, natural reporting. I mean, if QuickBooks had a brain, they would put in a rolling 12.
You just got a whole bunch of amens all across the continent.
Yeah. And so a lot of the ongoing service that we provide for our clients we consult with is taking their data out of their inept accounting systems and then creating this views of data. And think about it like this. I mean, we're just taking their data as it exists and just releasing it to tell the story. And there's a rolling 12 story, and there's a rolling 3 story, and then there's a monthly story. But you got to start with rolling 12 because that is the highest form of truth. If you start with months of looking at performance, you're going to ask questions, you're in denial. Oh, that's not right. Or, yeah, I mean, a month's a highly inaccurate period of time. But as you expand time and then plot it month to month to month against each other, you go, you can't escape this. This is true.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that would make sense in our industry is because of these lead times that we have, both on your sales cycle and then on the production side.
And so typically when we work in with contractors in the construction industry, various types, what we say is, you I don't want you to fiddle with WIP. And if you normally get your projects started and completed within 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would think rolling 12 will give you as good or better data with a lot less human effort. And working and accounting and posting work in progress is just a pain in the butt. And it's a big ass estimate too. And so if you have a start to completion cycle less than 2 months, just skip the WIP and just record everything, as it happens, and let the rolling 12, rolling 3 data tell the story. If it's over 2 months, okay, you got to come up with a WIP process, but don't don't calibrate a dough ball. I mean, it's like, make a good faith estimate and roll on, because the rolling 12s and the rolling 3s will smooth out the inaccuracies and look
And
at
that's where you'll start to
overall
learn
slope.
from your own info.
Absolutely.
Hey, I want to tell you a story about a lighthouse and a ship on the high seas. And of course, you're the captain of the ship, right? Ships don't need a captain at the wheel every second of the day. What they really need is a light to guide them safely home. And that's the role of a foreman in your shop. It's a steady guide. Now, the problem is most foremen were promoted for their skill on the tools, not their leadership. And on top of that, until now, there's really never been a way to train foremen on leadership skills. Well, Foreman 101 fixes that. Join my free information call. I need the owner and the foreman there together, and I'll show you the actual class agenda. Get on the wait list for the next free information session. Just text me at 206 208 7581 and say foreman training, and we'll get you on the list.
If you had 10 minutes in a room with a cabinet maker or a mill worker, they're in finished wood trade manufacturing,
Right.
what 3 financial numbers, and I think I already know one of them, but what 3 financial numbers would you tell them they've just got to be tracking or doing a better job of tracking?
Well, it's 4.
No,
And
it's
so,
okay.
so you're laying the corner post of the playing field. So the first corner post of the playing field is, I want you at 20% profit to gross margin.
20%. Sorry, 20% profit to gross margin.
So, gross margin. I don't care about how much revenues is starting point for math, but revenue minus your material cost, and if you use any subcontractors, not sub individuals, that's cheating, that's labor. But if you're contracting out a piece of what you're doing to another company,
like the upholstery or glass or something,
exactly, that's a COGS. And so you get the gross margin. That's your true economic time. That is the value that you have to add to the transaction inside your company. And that's the first dollar that you can spend internally in the company. And so that means it's really the true top line. Okay.
So look at your gross margin as your first true top line number.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. And so 15% is the minimum. If you're under 15%, I got questions.
So we talk about a gross margin here, and I'm going to use my language, allowing you to correct me. We're fighting for our guys to have a gross profit margin. That's how we talk about it currently, of 50% or above, 50, 55%. Are we? What am I confusing? That you'd smile a little bit there, so I know I'm about to get a lashing.
Well, I mean, can you take a percentage down to the grocery store and buy groceries with it?
Well, no, but we're trying to get that dollar figure, right?
I mean, I've had people in your industry be profitable at 40%, and I've had people be profitable in your industry at 60%. I mean, so the percentage doesn't matter. Now, it may be an opportunity, and it may be if you're on the high end of the scale, I mean, you're shrinking the marketplace. You're trying to be a high end, but I'll give you a good example. For the most part, we've got a mastermind group in the home renovation space, and out of the 15 companies in there, probably 80% of them are between 40 and 45% of gross margin as a percentage.
Sure.
And I hold them to the same standard. I want them to be at 20% minimum profit gross margin. absolutely not below 15. And if you're above 25, bank it while you got it, because the marketplace is going to come take it back away from you eventually. I mean, the market is dynamic. In the marketplace, whenever somebody is extra profitable at something, competition, the market demand, things come in at you to normalize that ability to be profitable. Now, if you want to run a niche business, okay, great. You're going to be at 32% profit to gross margin, but you can't grow because you got all the customers that will willing to pay that, but the next customer takes you down to 28, and the next customer that takes you down to 26, and so where on the price elasticity curve do you want to live? Do you want to be Nordstrom or Walmart? Well, I don't really want to be either one. I want to live in the elbow of that curve, price and volume.
Yeah.
But I mean, both of those survive. I mean, so
they're you just got to choose your business model.
Right, but Walmart will fail miserably if they try to do what Nordstrom does, and Nordstrom will fail miserably if they try to do what Walmart does.
Okay.
So
one is 20% profit to gross margin.
Yeah. And so secondly, now once you know that number, it tells you the most critical metric that you can run your business by, which is total LER, total labor efficiency ratio.
Yeah.
So whatever your labor cost is the denominator, if you were challenged with fractions in school, the denominator is the bottom number of the fraction and the numerator is the top number of fraction.
Yeah.
And so when you look at your financials, you look at gross margin that you have and divide it by all labor, in direct labor, management labor, anybody,
all labor. So that includes management salaries.
And not added. Don't add payroll taxes. Don't add benefits. That's noise. It's just stick to wages. And as I said, if you got contractors that are individuals,
yeah,
they're not contractors. They're employees. So from our analysis, we count them as labor.
And so what's the numerator again?
Numerator is gross margin. Denominator is all y'all labor.
All y'all labor.
Right. And so now,
love it.
I would say that in the cabinet industry, you're more of a manufacturing type model.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Your number is going to be a 2. I can tell you. It doesn't take any genius. It's going to be a 2. You got to get $2 of gross margin for every dollar of labor, regardless of what that labor does.
$2 of gross margin for every dollar of labor.
And unless you have, Taj Mahal facilities that you've overspent on overhead, you might have to have a higher number, but most of you guys not. And if you have really, really skinny, paltry facilities and you're, a cost miser, you might get to the 20%, with a 1.8, but you're going to mostly be 1.9 to 2.1. But I will tell you, 90% of your businesses in your industry to get to that 20% gross margin, it's going to be 2.
That's neat.
And so now we're coming up on August. How do you run your business? Calculate all the salaries you're going to pay next month.
Yeah.
Multiply times 2. That's your gross margin target for that month. Because the rest of it's noise. I mean, you can't cut kitchen supplies enough to get profitable. I mean,
no, you have to produce quality products so that it costs what it costs.
Yeah.
And the custom stuff costs what it costs.
Exactly. But you've got to deal with all of the functions of the business. You got to have people making the cabinets. You got to have people to do the design. You got to have people, to do the sale. You got to have people to project paperwork, project management, all of, and some of those in a lot of shops are one and the same person, or, but it doesn't matter. It's like, you got to get all of those things done. And so, I mentioned to you, before we started recording, I've got a client that is struggling. They've got backlog out the wazoo, and their design team can't get the projects done. And now they've got installers that are not the problem. They're sitting there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for the project to come out of design.
Right.
And it's like, you don't fall in love with your backlog. You got to get her done and get it out the door. And so, and a lot of times I get it. Now, I will say that do not ask me to make a cut into two pieces of wood and fit them together. That I was not blessed with that skill set.
Yeah.
I've watched plenty of episodes of This Old House, and Norm has all the fantastic tools known to mankind. But I was enamored with it at one time until I realized that is not, my skill set. I have high appreciation for the people that can do it.
Yeah, and they can
but
do it well.
That's not my monkey, and that's not my circus. Yes. So,
all right. I love this labor efficiency ratio number.
Yeah.
How common is it in the industry to talk about labor efficiency ratio?
I mean, if you ever hear labor efficiency ratio or the term LER, you will know that we're the only source.
Yeah.
So they came from simple numbers. We created that metric, and it is a fantastic metric. Now there are other when you go deeper and deeper, you can take that to really hone in on segments of the business as you get bigger. One of our construction contractors, we use one of his primary metrics. He's really profitable, but the way he keeps his team focused is we have a metric for gross margin per project manager salary. So we take we got a LER for each project manager. And so with his business, we know the precise gross margin output for what that project manager is being paid to what we expect, unless they're going to be underperforming. We got too many comparisons, data points of saying, here's what good performance is. And when you beat the target, that's when you get into the bonus range. And in the bonus range, it's not, doesn't go all to the project manager. It is sharing. If the company doesn't gain by beating the target, all is lost. I mean, it's a bad bonus plan.
Yeah, everybody has to gain in that bonus plan. Yeah, including the company, and other people who contributed, because it's not just the PM.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the first number is 20% profit to gross margin. Number 2, a labor efficiency ratio. What was your 3?
2 months of cash. And so this is I would say that any of the businesses listening to this that has not read simple numbers, I would say 9 out of the 10 of those, are not keeping 2 months of operating expenses in cash with 0 drawn on the line of credit. And now that cash does not include deposits that you have not performed on. So you don't.
I was going to say, we have to clarify, this isn't collected deposits for work you haven't done. That is a different, possibly criminal activity. If you're just living on deposits, yeah.
If you don't have a separate account that you put deposits in and move them over when you earn them, you're dancing on the edge of a thimble. So
sorry. So that's interesting. Your guidance would be have a separate account for deposits for
absolutely. Don't ever start thinking it's your money. Don't pull them over to your operating account until you earn it. And like you said, they're attorneys go to jail for not doing that.
Yeah, for not having
and it's a great system. I mean, and it's not complicated.
Yeah. I worry that some people are actually running a Ponzi scheme because they're living on the deposits of the next job. And if you're in that situation, we got to get you out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of, we were talking about this on our trip to Ireland. We were talking about pool contractors. Pool contractors are notorious. The type of project it is, it gets chunks of cash in a very short period of time and then gets stalled in a lot of times waiting, for the final finishing. And it is really, really easy for the pool contractor industry to get out over their skis and start spending deposit money that they earned. And so it's unfortunate, but the good ones don't, so
Well,
you're
and
building a
people
pool, just make sure that they do it the right way.
a message to all of us buying a pool. But
Right.
if somebody is in that situation, it's solvable.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
solvable.
and so and to solve it, so if you're not at the correct cash position, so all labor plus, take your general ordinary non-cogs, you get terms on cost of goods sold. So that's why we don't include cost of goods sold in that 2 month number. So it's labor and all your overhead costs, and take that times two for a month, and that's your cash balance. And if you're not there, well, how do you solve it? Well, get profitable. Profit creates cash flow that you can build equity back in the business.
It
And
sounds
so
like such a logical thing to get profitable. But it even comes back to which jobs you say no to and yes to. Only work on the profitable deals.
exactly.
How do you find that out? We call them end of job reports. Some people call them postmortems. But
Right.
not all jobs are built the same. Not all jobs have profit in them. You get to say no to some.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's more about saying no to the correct ones than saying yes most of the time.
That's right.
So,
I think I cut you off on number 4. So far.
well, and now we had said so we touched on the profit number first, and that's important, because if you're not profitable, you're going to die. I mean, it's just physics. So the second number, what is the operating metric that allows you to stay on target? Well, gross margin to labor. You don't need to look at anything else. Just gross margin. If you hit that gross margin to labor, you're gonna be fine. And then, okay, well, what is my uh, my guidepost to what cash belongs in the business versus what I can do anything I want to? Well, that's the 2 month number of cash. Yeah. And then once you set that aside, the last number is more of a validation metric of return on invested capital. And so in entrepreneurs, so I had to balance off, I can win telling people when they need to be profitable. I mean, they understand that, kind of generally. If they don't, they won't be around long. And then to get them to do the cash, in both of the books, I talk about your business is the highest producing earning asset that you will ever own if you run it properly. And unless you're doing, some crazy thing that the market doesn't care about, but if you're making cabinets, people need cabinets. You're going to, I don't see an end of now. The robots, we got a little bit of worry with AI.
Yeah, we use them. Robots are in our industry, and they're right now we are the overseers. One day they might be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for the meantime, we need humans to go out and install them and build them and design them and conceptualize, fixing that problem. And it's really an artistic skill to kind of see, that product fit into a space.
Yeah.
And to meet the needs. And so, but the return on invested capital is, well, how much do I have to invest in my business? And then what am I getting as a return? And so if you have to invest $500,000, so I have to have 2 months of cash in my business. I hope that you bill and collect early on, but depending on competition in your market, you might have a little bit of your money invested in some projects as you do them. But if you have to invest, assets minus liabilities, net 500,000, and you're making 500,000 in profit every year, wouldn't you want 100% CD? Because if you look at your business, look at the assets, and if you don't have the 2 months of cash, I will tell you, raise it, put the number in as if there are 2 months. look on the liability side,
Yeah.
and what all you got there, and take out the line of credit if you're drawn. We'll fix the cash and the line of credit, otherwise. But other than those two adjustments, what's the net equity of the business? Well, that's your invested capital in the business. And and what's our study, looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these businesses over the last 20 years, the minimum return on investment is 50% of a viable business. I mean, I have not seen a U.S. business in any industry that is less than 50% when it was operating at what we would consider viable profitability and investment parameters.
That seems like it's really closely tied to the labor efficiency ratio needing to be 2.
Well, the labor efficiency, that is how you get the profit, but the understanding of capital efficiency, don't, so give you a good example. So I get to, one of the things that I get to do in the entrepreneurs organization that I'm a part of, I get to be a member chair of a executive ed class at Wharton Business School every year.
Yeah.
And so it's 60 participants every year. We've done it about eight years in a row. And all different kinds of businesses. And what's stunning is I take them through an exercise to put their data in our model and to understand profit to gross margin, understand LER, and understand return on invested capital, and understand the 2-month cash principle. And invariably, it is the international businesses that have like 20% return on invested capital. I mean, so we were talking to one of the participants that was in India, and the business does services, and mostly for the government. The government was their primary customer. I mean, they have 270 days in accounts receivable. And wait, can you imagine?
No.
Having all your cost into a transaction and waiting 9 months to get paid. That
sounds horrendous. It probably exists.
It is, and so the capital cost to grow and build the business. I mean, the profits do not create enough cash flow to fund any growth because of waiting 9 months to get paid. And I get it. That's a different culture, but we need business owners to get outside of the U.S. and talk to business owners in other countries to make them realize how good we got it. I mean, the trade parameters that we have between businesses and the terms are just awesome. And we can complain about our federal government, but the one thing they're really good at, paying bills. I mean, if you're in the federal contractor system, I mean, you get paid in 30 days or less in most times, without a contract dispute and all those kind of things. And so, in essence, it creates a capital. Every business has a capital profile. And so there's 3 components to a capital profile. You got what I call trade capital, which I talk about this in the second book, 2.0, is trade capital. Think of working capital, which most business owners understand, current assets minus current liabilities. They're thinking of AR, inventory, WIP, minus, AP, deferred revenue. That's the net. And that is an okay calculation. But the traditional calculation with working capital, it includes cash and it includes short-term debt, like lines of credit, or and so after I researched this, I contended, cash and debt should never have been in that calculation, but the term working capital is a term of art, so it's already defined. And so I said, okay, so I named the baby trade capital, which is probably more appropriate. Trade capital is because I turn over trade. I have AR, may have inventory, may have work in progress, but I get to work out deals with vendors, and I get to work out, deposits by customers, and I pay on a deferred commission scale to my salesman, or take whatever. And so it is a netting of yes, I have this asset that I've got to fund, but okay, I can trade off with this liability and lessen the impact. And it's the net of those two that matters. And then once you take all of those things and net them, look at the total number to the rolling 12 sales, growth that you're at, or rolling 12 sales volume, I get a capital profile of, is your trade capital 5%? Well, why do I need to know that? Well, if your profit is at 10% and your trade capital is at 5%,
Yeah.
every dollar of new growth is going to be cash flow positive. If my profit is at 5% and my trade capital percentage is at 10, every new dollar of growth, I got to put in 5% into the cash register and wait to get paid. And it inhibits growth. And this is where,
This is
where talk about, you can grow broke, in that when you don't have a high enough profit ratio to the trade capital requirement, you're just spinning your hamster wheel, and you're going to die before ever the cash shows up. And
are you
and this is a simpler calculation than what we in the industry we call it cash conversion cycle days. And I just created a simpler way to help people understand it. And really, it has been fascinating to watch our clients, as we've shown in that metric, that they have been more responsive to that, rather than saying, "Oh, your accounts receivable days are 20 days higher than they should be." Well, yeah, and then we'll give you a litany of excuses of why.
reasons. We know that guy and he's behind, and
yeah, they're going to come in, it's like, but when you show them that net investment that they have in turning over a transaction right now versus what it was a year ago, it clicks.
Oh,
We've invested $500,000 into growing the business, and we hadn't got that. Oh crap, that's why we don't have cash. Oh, we're and you've heard it before. Oh, our P&L says we're profitable, but where is it? Where's the cash?
Where did it go? Yeah,
that's where it is. Yeah, and we'll have to look for the other two capital components is the infrastructure capital, which is quite simple. In your industry, it's not, it has equipment and production equipment, but I don't like ruining my cash position by paying cash for production equipment if I can easily finance it. And I don't really get wired up about the rate either. I mean, 8 or 9%. Okay, big whoop-de-doo. If you're talking about return on invested capital for this industry of generally 75 to 100%,
yeah,
I don't give a flying flip, about paying 8 to 9% interest on a piece of production equipment that's going to
less invested capital.
Exactly.
Create that throughput is that
Exactly.
what you're saying?
Exactly. And essentially, the payment on the note is a functional expense. I mean, if I was going back to Pacquioli and slap him, senseless, say, listen, I would expense a note payment and just give a memo entry to a bank in terms of how much the liabilities, were out there on the note. But the in the entrepreneur's mind, if I'm paying a $1,500 a month note, I got to generate more margin, extra margin to cover that $1,500, payment. Except, but the accountants, we want to split it up to, well, we book the asset on the balance sheet and we book depreciation, and then we take the note payment and we split it between principal and interest. The payment is an expense. In reality, in terms of the basic entrepreneur, I get it that high finance, wants to do it perfect. But I contend you can be $1 billion company and actually have more clarity of financial performance if you actually did it right.
I love it. So we've got infrastructure capital, trade capital. What's the third kind? And then we'll wrap on that.
Is we call it buffer capital. And so that's your 2 months cash. And so it's cash minus line of credit. And so that's your buffer. And so don't be below the 2 months. That's the balance sheet in 3 easy numbers.
That one there.
Oh yeah, the balance sheet. That's the sheet you don't ever look at. So
yeah, the balance.
But it's kind of important.
The thing that some people might be recognizing already is that they went to work this morning thinking they're building cabinets, but you just gave us a class in CEO level finance. And I have to add, for people that are freaked out because they didn't understand some of these things, just slow down, take a deep breath. It's all learnable. Read the book, Simple Numbers. I'll tell you what, if you want to go on vacation and not get bothered while you're reading a book, no offense, Greg, I was reading Simple Numbers and Scaling Up by Vern, the purple one. Nobody came to bug me.
Yeah.
And I was able to noodle through that book, take a bunch of notes, but it's good stuff. And that's the best place for me to take that in when my mind is clear.
Yeah.
You know, in the military, they use a term and it's called a force multiplier. Some of you have heard of it, I'm sure. It's something that makes a team more powerful than their numbers would suggest. Sometimes it's better gear, sometimes it's strategy, but most often it's a strong leader. 10 soldiers with the right leader can beat 50 without one. And your shop's no different. Without leadership, you've just got a bunch of bodies swinging hammers and sweeping the floor. But with a trained foreman, your crew becomes a unit, a solid unit that gets the job done right the first time. That's how the military stacks the odds in its favor every single time. And that's what Foreman 101 is. It's leadership training for the people who multiply your results, your foreman, your supervisors. Think about this for a second. If you had a well-trained foreman, I'll bet you could finally make it home for dinner on time, right? Because your force multiplier is your foreman, and your foreman's tool is leadership training. Get on the wait list for the next free info session. Just text me at 206-208-7581 and say foreman training. We'll get you on the list.
My wife was reading some other trashy magazines and stuff, Chatelaine or whatever, and ladies were coming up and chatting. Yeah. None of the guys came and talked to me. Maybe I'm evil looking.
Yeah. I need to, put some racy stuff in there,
I think it just might be like, what's this guy's reading a book on numbers and strategic planning? He must be a real party. But that's where I discovered you, because I found you originally inside the Scaling Up book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back and researched you and got that other book. I brought them both on vacation.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a fool's dream that I probably headed down this journey. I mean, I was a kid who grew up on a chicken farm in Alabama, and I mean, I didn't have a pedigree, in this, but it's like, it really is heartwarming. I didn't know this until somebody told me the other day. I mean, I think I had over 1,000 5-star reviews on Amazon
on the book.
And it's like, oh, well, that's cool.
Oh, well, that's nice. Go home and tell your family at dinner. They're like, all right, Dad, pass the salt, please. Yeah.
Greg, but it really is. And it's a funny thing. Now, I will caution your audience. If you go tell these ideas to your accountant, I mean, they will roll their eyes, tell you, that I'm an idiot. I mean, that's not right, or yeah, you could do that, but they'll give you the but. And I just love it when the non-accountants get it and just start making bank. And so, I mean, over the last 20 years, I mean, it's been really a very enjoyable experience to watch these entrepreneurs when you give them a handful of rules
that help.
Gosh, I mean, it is not complex. I mean, and I will tell you, the bar to executing a great business right now is at the all-time low.
Isn't that tragic?
I mean, competition sucks in every industry.
No, it's easy. It's easy to stand out and be a good business person. Absolutely. Because the competition's not there. I've learned a couple of things, and these ones come to you after years of just beating your head against the wall, right?
Yeah.
Is one of them is that accounting is done to keep my tax implications low. It's not to really see me as a profitable person, and then as a business, I'm sorry. And then the other one, I was frustrated with my accountant, who's a good guy and who served me for many years. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's also in EO. Greg, I'm in EO as well. My buddy's in EO. For those of you listening who don't know this EO word, it's the Entrepreneurs Organization. Just life changer for me. Everything in my life, business-wise, came back to my membership in that. But anyways, he's an accountant there, and we were just chatting as guys in a forum do. And he goes, well, Dom, you know what it's like running an accounting firm right now? you're dealing with the same labor market everybody else is dealing with. They want to come in at 8:05. They want to leave at 4:30, but they want to get paid for a full day. They all want to be a vice president, and they don't want to work hard. They don't want to specialize. He goes, if you're asking any complicated financial transaction, it's going to fall back on the most senior person who's the owner. He goes, we just can't do it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, and therein lies our profession faces a challenge because the last data that I heard was for every person passing the exam right now, there's 5 that are retiring.
Oh,
that's bad math.
So even I didn't know that because the trades is suffering from a real big vacuum, but I didn't realize that.
It's worse. It's worse in our industry, especially in tax. But I mean,
but it's so exciting. Tax is. Sorry, I have to do that.
That's well, I mean, I've always contended I have not been successful at changing the mindset of the tax people. So I chose to focus on consulting in the last 10 years, 20 years of my business, because I could, we are busy 12 months out of the year. I mean, we don't have a high season, low season.
You're not spiking at tax return season.
There's always needed. But I wanted to pair tax prep. And so we merged with Carl Riggs and Ingram back in 2020, a top 20 accounting firm, and they're growing rapidly and acquiring, other practices. And so, but I never could get our preparers. And so I've kind of shifted our, anybody who needs tax prep that we do consulting, we have another office, do that, which is nice because I could care less about tax prep, and to be quite honest, and it's needed, it's important, but I couldn't get the tax people to do things like our consultants. Our consultants, and everybody listening, this is a freebie on project management. I became the most productive in my career when I got rid of the to-do list. So I do not have a to-do list. I have a calendar. And the calendar is telling me I just open up to calendar tomorrow to know what I need to do tomorrow. It's anything that needs to be prepped, it's on the calendar. Any call that needs to be done, it's on the calendar. I mean, this is it. And you can't overschedule the calendar, and so there's a time frame.
There's only so many blocks. Yeah.
There's only so many blocks. And and I, ever since we went to that, I mean, it works. And I never could get the tax people. They love it. Remember I said, don't overlove your backlog, in the construction industry. Well, that's like the to-do list, the tax return list for a tax preparer. I mean, they wear it. The deadlines are a red badge of courage. And it's like, no, that's just bad planning. I mean, there's a certain segment that needs the return done by the original due date. That's about 25%.
Yeah.
There's about 40% that needs the return done by August 1st. And then the last part is the Procrastinators Convention of America group, that always, they're waiting on something, and some are their fault and some are the other people's fault that's out of their control. But there is a natural 10-month production window that balances without, peaks and valleys that you can plan out, but they don't plan out. The task is a return. Well, no, there's like 7 or 8 elements to planning out the return, and you ought to have those 7 or 8 on your schedule, as and so the process of advanced production has not reached, the accounting,
the process of lean manufacturing.
No,
and even project management, because you have to manage files and file
transfers. And the much more applicable example is agile. So you could use agile development philosophies in service-based projects like this. But it's not. I mean, it's just resisted, by the people in the industry. And when you resist those things, prepare to be exterminated. And AI is going to exterminate, 80% of the jobs existing today in accounting within 10 years.
So we're going to need to know more about the critical numbers. I'm so glad you shared some of these numbers here, because there are a lot of financially minded people in our industry, and they've learned it through, just hard work and determination. And trying to sift all of the numbers down into the key numbers is the hard part. I like the way you've laid this out, and I'm sure people are going to actually, let's do this. If Greg, if somebody wants to find out more about you,
Yeah.
we know you're an author. Give us a couple of your top books and how we find you.
Yeah, and so I've got a speaker website that lists the books, and so it'll take you straight to the Amazon website to make a purchase. So gregcrabtree.net, is the speaker website. But our consulting practice is simplenumbers.cri.com. And so they'll find, that we do a weekly podcast. Two of my partners, do most of the episodes. I'll do about one a month, with them. But we have some guests on there that really been incredible, to give insight. And so we gravitate to not just the drill of the day. I mean, I like good entrepreneurial stories where people figured it out. They put the pieces together, and those are the kind of people we gravitate to.
Love it. Well, Greg, thank you so much for being a guest back here. There's a couple of little side notes that I took that I might have you back to talk about. We might just do an episode on labor efficiency ratio just on its own.
We could.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your summer, and relax your shoulders after all that golfing in Ireland. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't recommend it to go over there and post your scores and to think you're going to lower your handicap.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Have a great day.
Well, Mr. Greg Crabtree, thank you so much for being on the show. Boy, do I appreciate it, because you're kind of a big deal. Listen, folks, he was the author or contributing author to this book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. Vern is a great guy. Greg's a great guy. Just giving us wisdom, like really important, hard-fought, hard-won wisdom. And yeah, you might be a shop doing in the tens of millions, but you might also be a shop just over $1 million and wondering, how do I capture these numbers so that I'm making the right decisions? This is what Greg and I were talking about today, labor efficiency ratio. And the bottom line is, if you want to grow your cabinet business beyond that couple million in sales and keep profitability healthy and still have a life, you got to start looking at labor as a lever that yields profit. Many of you have downloaded the 1 hour calculator from me. And if you haven't, you probably should, because you would use both of these numbers together. They're kind of like magic numbers, something that you can see on the page that'll tell you just by glancing at it how the business is doing, what you can expect to come, and maybe where you made some mistakes or great moves in a couple of weeks ago that's now showing up on your P&L and balance sheet. If you want the 1 hour calculator, just send me a text. You guys know how to get information from me. Pretty straightforward. My cell phone number is 206-208-7581, and just say 1 hour calculator. And then I'll say, no, but I'll just send off the 1 hour calculator. It's a 1-page sheet. It's easy to use. Anyways, I want to thank Greg for being here. I met many of you at the AWI convention down in San Antonio earlier this week. By the time this goes to live, it'll be a few weeks now, but that's what I live for. Having a glass of wine, cup of coffee. We actually had a couple of old fashions. That was a highlight. And we drank some mezcal drinks. That was also a highlight. That's a very San Antonio thing to do, but that's what I live for. Talking to the computer and making these podcasts and YouTube videos is great, but really getting out there and meeting with all of you and learning more about how you're running your business and the challenges and the things we learned together while we were at the conference is just fantastic. Anyways, maybe I haven't met you yet, but I still look forward to it. So let's put some time aside for that. Thanks for checking in, folks. We will see you on the next episode.